Welcome to Coming to Know Yourself. Thank you for your time and your attention. I always appreciate it when you join me on these conversations. And I try to not waste any words. Through the entire video, there's always important information if you're able to make it all the way through. And today, I want to have a conversation about the meaning of life. And the meaning of life, there's two perspectives. There's the meaning of this life on earth, why we are here, why we exist in this universe. And then there is the meaning of life within, the meaning of consciousness, awareness, the very experience of our own inner life as our own personal experience of life. And in this conversation, I want to dive into both, but in order to understand the inner life, we need to understand the meaning of why we are here on this planet. And there's a reason why we are here. So let's dive in. We need to go back to the very beginning of when we were each first born. And we typically think that we are born from our physical mothers, and that's the beginning of our life. But there is actually a place and a time that we were all first born before we came to earth. Many of the scriptures call it reincarnation. And so there is a place that we were all born. It's oftentimes called the kingdom of heaven. And so we're going to go back to the time when we were actually first born, when we came into existence, when our very consciousness and awareness came into existence, and we opened our eyes for the first time to discover the very meaning of our own existence, the meaning of life itself, and what it means to be alive and why we exist at all. And so before we came here, the way the physical life starts out is on the first 6 weeks of the gestation of the fetus of a newborn child. The very first thing that's formed is the brainstem. And the very first thing that becomes active on the brainstem is a brainwave signal, brain activity. And so that brain activity is actually a wireless electromagnetic frequency, a brainwave, which is a wave in the form of a signal. And that signal is transmitted from the physical universe to what's called the dimension of mind. In the scriptures, they call it the kingdom, and when you're in that perfect oneness with the kingdom, that your mind is called the kingdom of heaven. And that's for another conversation. So when we are first born in the kingdom of the mind or the kingdom of heaven, we are one with God. And by one with God, what I mean is, in the beginning in Genesis, it talks about how we were made in God's image, in his likeness. And that image is not like a body or something you can see. It is a compilation of knowledge. Like it says in the scriptures, in the beginning was the Word, and the Word was God, and the Word was with God. The Word is a compilation of code which is the knowledge, the pre-knowledge that we're all born with. Kind of like animals have their own natural instincts, their own pre-knowledge that allows them to know who they are and to guide them through life to be who they are, as whether they're a dog or a cat or an alligator or a bear. It guides them to be true to themselves, so they have no inner conflict. They know themselves. And so this pre-knowledge we are born with comes with us to earth. But before we came to earth, we are born in the kingdom of heaven, which each one of us has a piece of the kingdom of heaven, because each one of us has our own mind. And the mind is not in the brain. The brain interfaces with the mind with a wireless brainwave signal, which sends the 5 senses through the universe, outside the universe, into the ether, which is outside the universe, which is known as the realm of consciousness or the spiritual realm. And in the spiritual realm, each one of us has our own dimension called the mind. Each one of us has our own mind, and it's our own inner universe. And that dimension is formed by our own energy around our being. Our being is consciousness and awareness. And we'll go more into what that is in another video. So this dimension of energy around us, which formulates the mind, God also has a dimension of mind. And each one of us is connected to God through telepathic means. When we're first born, we're on the same plane of existence. And so when we're born in God's image, that compilation of pre-knowledge, which is the absolutes of love, unconditional love, and truth. That truth tells us who we are, tells us that we're alive. It's the self-knowledge, the I am that I am. It gives us the truth that we exist and that we know our meaning of being in this life, because it tells us that we exist and what we are and who we are. And along this journey, we lose that. But for right now, we are in the spiritual realm outside the universe, in our dimension of mind, telepathically linked to God. And when we're first born, we see in God's likeness. And what that means is we're telepathically linked. And so our inner dimension of mind is seen exactly like God's dimension of mind. And so it's as if we're on the same plane of existence, experiencing the same place. Kind of like if you play a video game and you're playing an online game, it feels like you're all in the same place, but you're really on your couch playing on an online connection to a server. So you would think of each mind or kingdom of heaven as a separate connection to the ether, kind of like the Ethernet is connected to the internet. And we are connected to the mainframe, which is all of existence. And the mainframe that we're connected to has an IP address, which is a state of consciousness called the consciousness of heaven. And we're seeing that reality kind of like we're logged into a video game. We're seeing the reality of God, which is we're experiencing perfect love, perfect peace, or we're experiencing the truth of our existence. We know who we are, we know what we are, that we're spiritual beings. And we're in the first few moments of our existence, we are experiencing the Garden of Eden. And God created the Garden of Eden as a place of knowledge. And so the knowledge of good and evil exists within this Garden of Eden. It's a beautiful place. It has all of the colors and richness and all the things we see of beauty, of flowers and nature and all that kind of stuff. And it feels like we're walking in the garden with God. Because at that time, our image that He made us in His likeness, we're experiencing that same consciousness, that same plane of existence telepathically. And so our minds are telepathically linked, and we're seeing and experiencing the same plane of existence as God. And so it's as if we're not in our own minds experiencing it, as if we're with God. Just as the scripture that says, in the beginning was the Word, and the Word was God, and the Word was with God. In the beginning, God made us with that word, that code, in His own image. And we were that code, that image. And it gave us the experience of consciousness. And that word was with us as it allowed us to be with God. And we had the same consciousness called the consciousness of heaven. And so our inner world, the kingdom of the mind, was experiencing the kingdom of heaven, just like God is the kingdom of heaven. And so we were walking in the garden even with God. And it was meant for us all to experience our life in the beginning in the Garden of Eden. And in that garden is where we spend our days as a perfect copy of God. We have no individual personality or character. We are literally a mirror image of God. We are made in His image. Just like in Psalms 82:6, it says, ye are gods. You are made of the children of the Most High, but you shall fall like men and die like one of the princes. And so in these early stages of our birth, we are as gods. We are seeing in the image of God. We are seeing in the likeness of God. We are children of God. And so God basically explains to us that he has given us the absolutes of love and truth, and we are experiencing a perfect image of God. And it's as if God is looking at a mirror image of himself, like an exact copy, and we are looking at God as if we are an exact mirror image of God. It's almost like we are indistinguishable. But God says there is also a tree of knowledge, another image that we can take on and learn, eat of the fruit, digest. When we consume knowledge, it's as if we're eating that fruit. The knowledge and understanding is that fruit. And so God talked about how there's a tree of knowledge, of the knowledge of evil. And he explained to make sure that our free will was never compromised. God explained that if we learn of that knowledge, that fruit, if we eat of that fruit, that we will fall from the state of consciousness that God is connected to with us. We will no longer be on that plane of existence because God has the knowledge and the experience and the wisdom to maintain that plane of existence, that state of consciousness of heaven. He gave us that image. He made us in his likeness. But we don't have the wisdom to understand how to maintain that. So when we were first born, we are as if on autopilot. God is sustaining our connection to his mind, his telepathic connection to experience that Garden of Eden. And so he explains that if we learn of the knowledge of evil, we will be just like him, but then we will fall from that state of consciousness. We will fall from we will die. We will fall like one of the princes. And in the scriptures, it's referring to the principalities, the principles of consciousness. And so our principles of consciousness will fall into a low state of consciousness, and we will not be able to be in that high state of the kingdom of heaven. And it will be when we begin our journey to come to know ourselves again and raise our consciousness, ascend into that high state of consciousness, resurrect ourselves into that plane of existence again, and see in that light of God again in his image. Just like it says in John, in him was the light, and it was the life. In him was the life, and it was the light of men, but the darkness comprehended it not. Something like that. Sorry. And so the light is God's wisdom, his grace, but allows God to sustain that high state of consciousness called the kingdom of heaven, or the consciousness of heaven. And so that life, that light, we are to fall into darkness. And basically, at that time, he's explaining that when we consume the knowledge of evil, we will learn everything that God knows. But then we will fall from that grace, because now we need to find our own grace. We need to come to know that darkness, the unknowing, and find our wisdom and come to know ourselves in that light and restore that life, resurrect that life that he created us in his likeness. And so it was meant to be that we were supposed to fall from the Garden of Eden in the spiritual realm. And so in our pre-birth moments, we come to know ourselves as the I am. We awaken to this reality and we find ourselves in the presence of God. And it's blissful, it's peaceful, we're full of love. We know no suffering because we do not have the knowledge of evil. And so in this state, we are living in a different type of ignorance. We know ourselves and we are being true to ourselves, but we have no real free will because we have no hindsight, no contrast. We have no other choice but to simply be love, peace, truth, joy. We have no other knowledge to compare it to or choose because we do not have the knowledge of evil. And so in this state, we have no appreciation for being this absolute heavenly state of total peace and love. And so we are born into this passion for life, for experience. We want to know so much more because we are actually born into heaven, that high state of consciousness. We are experiencing the highest state of consciousness, the bliss of all bliss, the nirvana, the bliss, the total peace. And so there is no more to experience than that. But we don't have the wisdom to realize that we have the treasure already, that God gave us the ultimate experience of life. And it's like, as children, we don't know how good it is until we lose what our parents were providing for us. And then we have to go out on our own and figure out life for ourselves. And so this passion sparks a strong desire in us to want more. And it's almost like we're born into addiction for life. We're addicted to life. And we're addicted to the pleasure of being and experiencing this heavenly state. And we want to experience more of it, because the moment we open our eyes to reality, that's the highest high we'll ever experience in our entire life, is when we realize, oh my God, I exist. I'm awake. I am real. That transcendence of I am. I exist. And our hearts beat for the very first time. And we experience heaven for the very first time. It's like eating your very first chocolate for the very first time, experiencing the most beautiful experience for the very first time. All the first times. When we're first born, it's as if we experienced all the first times all at once. It's like lighting the fuse and burning the candle immediately, and all the fireworks go off all at once, and you're born into the bliss of heaven and nirvana, and then it's normalized, and it's just you, and you're just alive. But you're unconvinced that there's not more, because you don't have the wisdom to understand that you have everything already. And so there's this desire, this strong desire to want more. And this passion is born in us, the very drive of want. I want, I want, I want. I need to know more. And so it was meant for us to find a way to understand this treasure that we already have, and to appreciate it and truly come to peace with who we are, and have that wisdom to know that there is nowhere else to go. There is nowhere else to be. We are the eternal now. We are the moment. But we just don't have the appreciation. And so on top of that, we're copies of God. So there is no difference between God and us. We have no personality, no personal reality of our own. Nothing to share with God. He gave us everything. And so there is nothing to really fulfill love, because we don't have anything to share but simply a reflection, like a mirror. We're literally a mirror of God. And so God made this physical universe as a spiritual school. And God explained that when we learn of the knowledge of evil, and he gives us that second part of ourselves, the darkness, the suffering, the unknowing, the ignorance, and we fall from this experience, we go into a state of reincarnation, or our first incarnation, where the child that's going to be born to the physical mother, that brainwave signal, the first 6 weeks of the gestation, when that brainwave first activates, that brainwave is then transmitted into the spirit realm, and we go into a deep sleep. We don't leave heaven. We never set foot on earth. Our being, our consciousness, our awareness, we have no body. We are beings of light and energy with a field of energy around us. And it's one of the reasons why we look up to the stars and we get so in wonder and enthralled, because the stars are the picture of our family tree. Each one of us is like a star. And within that star, we have a field of energy that we can manipulate and create thoughts and emotions and feelings and images. And right now, what we see with the eyes is a recreation in our minds. It's the brain from the human body, the human vessel, is transmitting outside the universe to our spiritual dimension, the kingdom of heaven. The five senses and our own light is creating this pattern of what we see right now, and our own energy, called awareness, recreates subtle variations of taste, touch, hearing, and smell as subtle variations of our awareness, to give us different experiences of our own being, of awareness. And so we go into a deep sleep and we forget that we're in the kingdom of heaven. We fall from that plane of existence that God exists at. And we are connected to wirelessly, our consciousness is connected to a newborn child. And we begin our journey on earth as pretending to be humans. That's why it says in Psalms 82:6, you shall fall like one of the princes and die like men. Like a human, we will live a life journey and we will pretend to be humans and then die like a human physically, but we will also have a spiritual death. We will fall into a low state of consciousness, the human state of consciousness, the negative polarity, the ego, the egoistic polarity, the polarity of darkness, of suffering, of want, of yearning, of struggle, to find ourselves again in that light and come to know ourselves as spiritual beings of love, of peace, of truth, and find that hindsight, that wisdom to learn to appreciate and know who we are as spiritual beings and truly appreciate that heavenly state of our existence that we were born in. But while we're on this journey, we also must find our own grace. And that grace is to learn to be still and know. Be still and know who we are, that we are God, that we were made in his likeness, and that we don't need anything. We were born and given all the absolutes of the perfect experience of life, of all the absolutes of love and of truth. And we don't need this want, this yearning, this broken void inside our hearts. We don't need to be constantly seeking for happiness, struggling, that we need to be still in the heart and still in the mind. We don't need to be constantly searching and yearning and thinking and looking out there for answers, because all the answers are inside us. God left with us. He gave us a piece of that light, that divine spark, the eternal flame inside our hearts. And it is the light that is the life of men. And we carry it with us. And while we're in this darkness of the ego and this yearning and struggling and this constant addiction to want, we comprehend that light not. We do not comprehend it until, like Jesus says, until we make thine eye be single, our perception be single, and our hearts be single, no longer divided in that want, then our bodies will be full of light. We will be restored with that image that God made us in, and our hearts and our souls, which is our spiritual body, will be filled with the light again, when we can become still in the heart and in the mind and still that desire. Make that passion fall asleep and find that grace to learn to be just one with ourselves and no longer in that constant yearning and struggle and wanting, and to come to know ourselves again as spiritual beings of love, and to have faith in the love, the knowledge that we were born with, and no longer using the negative knowledge, the negative polarity, using the ego and the pride and the arrogance and the way of negative thinking and negative response, and to learn to be beings of love again, so that we can raise ourselves into that high state of consciousness and ascend back into that high plane of existence and be one with God again and see in the likeness of God again and be connected and experiencing that plane of existence again and walking in the Garden of Eden once more. But until then, we walk many lifetimes, even if it takes hundreds of human journeys, in reincarnating, connecting our consciousness to another baby vessel, to learn to come to know ourselves and be still in the heart, to control our emotions, to control our thoughts, to control our desires, to learn that love is the way back to that truth of who we are, into that eternal life that we once were born in as the image that God made us in. And Jesus talks about that. He says, the way is love, and the truth shall set you free, and you will, and that he is the life. He personified that image that God made us in, and so now that image is now the Christ image, and he now teaches the way, the truth, and the life, to teach us how to become still in the heart. Like he says, empty your cups, of all your desire, of all your wants, of all your struggle, all your darkness, so that thine eye can be single again and no longer full of darkness, and our bodies will not be full of darkness. Our hearts will not be full of darkness. Our minds will not be full of darkness. When we humble ourselves like little children, set aside our egos, and learn to walk through the narrow path of the way of only living by the attributes of love, reinstating the kingdom of heaven within us, and filling our hearts with only love. That's why he says you must be born of water and of spirit, or you will not enter the kingdom of heaven. Thus, the plane of existence of the mind that is of heaven. Because the water is the living water, which is the absolutes of love. Love is the life. It is the meaning of life. And so when we learn to only express love to ourselves and to others and fill our cups full of love, then that water, that living water, washes out our cups. Our hearts are no longer broken and divided. That want is now goes away because now our hearts are whole and we are in that oneness again. And that's why Jesus says, I have living water. If you drink of this water, you will never thirst again, because the want, the struggle, the yearning will be gone. And we will want for naught, because we will be whole again, and we will experience that inner peace and that perfect love that God made us in his image again. And we will resurrect that eternal life, that image that God made us in, and we will know that truth again, just as Jesus says, know that truth, and that truth shall set you free on the narrow path of the way, which is to love ourselves and love others and make love more important than our own lives. And so we walk this path through multiple life journeys, and there is no hell, there is no damnation, there is no judgment like Apostle Paul teaches. Apostle Paul was not a true disciple of Jesus. He wanted the power that Jesus had, and he wanted the influence, and he made his own religion, the Catholicism, the Christianity of man. But Jesus teaches the Essene way, the Nazarene way, the Jesus of Nazareth way, the way, the truth, and the life, to love no matter what. The way is love, to love all living creatures, to love Mother Earth, to love our brothers, to love our sisters, to love everyone, because this life is temporary, and we came here to learn to be beings of love. And in the spiritual realm, we don't need anything. We don't need our ego validated. We don't need stuff. We don't need opinions. We don't need judgments. We don't need to be arrogant or prideful. We don't need to guard ourselves with our own opinions and create fake personalities to be around other people, because no one is trying to prove anything. Everyone loves unconditionally. And so we are here to learn to love unconditionally as we did in the kingdom of heaven. That's why it says, if you do not humble yourself like this little child, become like a little child again, you will not see the kingdom of heaven. And so this meaning of this physical life is to come to know ourselves, know thyself, be still in want and know, and come to know ourselves again. Just as Jesus says, when you can stand alone with nothing the world can take from you and only love in your heart, then the kingdom of heaven will open for you. And what it means is when you can emotionally rest, standing emotionally as all one, is in that alone feeling, and not need that drive of want to satisfy something, to satisfy that addiction of constant emotional stimulation, of doing, of getting, of changing how you feel constantly. And you can just be all one. To stand alone is to be all one. No more want, no more divided heart, to be whole. And when the world can take nothing from you, when you want nothing from the world, and you're just a passerby, you don't need anything, you're not affected by anything, you're not easily manipulated into conflict, you don't need your opinions validated, you're not offended by anybody, no matter how rude they are. It's as if you have died, the spiritual death. Like the Zen masters say, die before you die, an ego death. When the world can take nothing from you because you're just passing through. Nothing can affect you emotionally because nothing matters. It's all temporary. You look upon everyone as brothers and sisters, and that you know that they know not what they do because they're asleep. And you're not offended in any way, shape, or form. You're not affected emotionally. You're completely emotionally in control of all your emotions. No feelings, nothing in the human life is affecting you. You are all one at all times. And you have nothing but love in your heart, because when we are first born, we are born with pre-knowledge of the absolutes of love and truth. We have no want in us until we come here, and that darkness enters us, and we have that void, and we fall into that darkness. And so the only thing that is left when all personal desire is ended is just our natural way of being, just love. At the bottom of our hearts is just love. That's why it says, I mean it from the bottom of my heart. What we mean is, the meaning of life is love. And when you let go of the whole ego, all there is at the bottom of the heart is love. And you need nothing, because love fulfills it all. That's why Jesus says, thus is be so that we fulfill all righteousness. Because the love fulfills all our needs, all our wants. Everything that we want to experience and feel is in us already. All we can experience is positive, negative, or neutral feelings. There is nothing else but those feelings. And we alone have the choice to experience the negative polarity of the human identity of the ego, or to set it aside and be the neutral polarity of that all-one state of inner peace, or to express the positive polarity and express love and be love, and no longer be reactive through the ego with that emotionally generated outlook. And now we have to consciously give love to ourselves and share that love with others and be that love. And when nothing but love is in our hearts, then we are whole, and we have the Holy Grail. We have that divine light, that divine spark in us again, and thine eye is single and our whole bodies are full of light, and the cup is empty, because love washes out all the negativity, all of the struggle, all of the ego, all of the fear, all of that need to be validated, all that need to be accepted by others. And we have now self-love. We accept ourselves. No matter how we're judged, we have self-love. We don't need to be validated. And so we are not afraid to be judged. And we're not judging anybody else, because we're not affected by the world emotionally. We're just passing through, and we're standing alone in our own inner peace, emotionally whole and completely absent of want, no personal desire. And we let go of our entire human life because we know it's just temporary. And we have the highest state of consciousness and awareness. And we're seeing again through the likeness of God in that blissful heavenly experience. The whole path of the way, the truth, and the life was to allow us to restore ourselves on earth, experiencing a piece of heaven on earth, literally seeing earth as we did in the kingdom of heaven through the likeness of God. And so each of us is supposed to restore heaven on earth through us. We're supposed to be heaven, be the way, be the truth, be the life. That's why Jesus said, I am the way, the truth, and the life. No one comes to the Father but through me. To come to the Father is through our hearts. He made the image of him. He made us in his likeness. To get to the Father, to telepathically link to his plane of existence, is to become that way, to become that truth, to become the love and truth again, to reignite that divine spark and connect to God again in that life, to fill our eyes and our hearts and our souls with that light, and to empty ourselves of want so that we're single in that all-one state again, so that we can be that way, be that truth, be that life. And Jesus teaches the way, the truth, and life through his ministry of the Essene gospel of the Nazarene way. Much of it has been lost and removed from the canon because Emperor Constantine and all the bishops wanted to create a false religion, an Apolline religion of Apostle Paul. But the original writings of the Essene gospel of peace, the hidden gospel of the Nazarenes, the Didache of the 12 apostles, the Dead Sea Scrolls, and most importantly, the Nag Hammadi scriptures, the Gospel of Thomas is the path of truth, and the Gospel of Philip and Mary Magdalene is part of the path of truth. And in the canon, Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John are the path of love. And so you have the way and the truth that restores the life, which is the image that God made us in, which Jesus personified and sacrificed his life to personify that image as the Christ image and to show the way to the truth so that we can resurrect ourselves and experience heaven on earth now so that we can save our journey. The salvation is to come to know ourselves as spiritual beings, gain our own personal reality as heaven so we can have that grace that God has, to have that hindsight, to have that, if I only knew then what I know now, if I only knew then when I was born in heaven, that the suffering I know now, I would have never left heaven. But I needed to know that grace, to find my own wisdom, to walk in the valley of the shadow of death, to understand what it is to be in that darkness so that I can truly appreciate being the heaven, being the love, being the peace, so that I'm no longer wanting more because I was already given everything in the beginning. So it's like you're coming full circle to the oneness and seeing again our own being in the I am that I am. I am love. I am truth. I am peace. I am that I am been searching for my whole life in the pursuit of happiness, the pursuit of love, the pursuit of peace. I am all these things. I don't need anything but to find it, restore it, and then share in my likeness with others and just have company and be at peace. And that's the true resting in peace, is to find that peace, become one, be still and know that truth, and become a being of love again, and be born of the Spirit and be a being of love again. So that is the meaning of life. The meaning of life is love and truth and the light of that high state of consciousness and awareness. We are supposed to walk that darkness, purge that darkness from us, end that want, learn to be beings of love again by living the attributes of love, expressing it, being it, giving it to ourselves, and purging that darkness from us to make our hearts one again so that our eyes can be single and our bodies full of light, and to empty our cups so that we can see like little children again, like we were in the beginning when all we had was that pre-knowledge, when we opened our eyes to this human life and we were just living life through the perfect experience of love and peace, and to be reborn of water, cleanse our cups and reborn of love so that we can be born of that spirit again of love and truth and be children of God again, to be a son of God, a daughter of God, the sun representing the light, not a male or female, because spiritual beings are not male or female. A female can be a son of God, and a male can be a son of God. Just like it says in the Gospel of Thomas, if you will come to know yourself, then you will become known, and you will know that you are sons of the living Father, meaning the light of the living Father. But if you will not come to know yourself on this life journey as a human, then you will live in poverty and be that poverty. The poverty being this human identity, this human negative polarity, this suffering, this falseness, this darkness, not having the wealth, the treasures of heaven, which is the self-knowledge, the truth, and the knowledge of a spiritual being as love, to awaken as a spiritual being, and to come to know ourselves as children of God again. That's why Jesus says, store not things of earth that rot and corrupt and rust, the wants of the human life. Store not the wants of the human life. Store up for yourself treasures in heaven, self-knowledge, wisdom. Learn to walk in the grace of God through love. Learn the wisdom of love and choose only love to live through life. Just like the Essene way, the Nazarene way, the real gospel of Jesus, the oldest gospel of Jesus, before the Council of Nicaea and Apostle Paul hijacked the Christians, the Christ's way of the Essenes and made the man's way of religion. Before all of that, the oldest Jewish religion of Enoch, the Essene way, the original Torah of the path of the way to the truth, to restore the life. That is what we're meant to do here, is to awaken, let go of the human life, and come to know ourselves as spiritual beings again, to know thyself, Because if we don't come to know it now, we will just reincarnate until we come to know ourselves as beings of love and truth. There is no hell, like Apostle Paul says. Hell is a state of consciousness. The human experience is the hell. The human experience is the negative polarity. It is the image of the darkness. It is the hell. And so Earth right now is the plane of existence of hell. And so we're supposed to make heaven on earth, restore it within us, and to show others the way by becoming the heaven, becoming the truth through the way, and resurrecting that life. Because if we don't come to know ourselves now in this journey, there's nothing to save. That's why Jesus says, at the time of harvest, we'll divide the wheat from the tares. The harvest is the last day of our human life. Awakening is the last day of the judgment, because when we awaken, we have divine judgment. To see the hindsight, if I only knew then what I know now, that is the last day of judgment. When we look at our lives and judge ourselves and get that hindsight, that wisdom, that contrast of coming back to ourselves. If we don't awaken now to get that hindsight, we have no way to create our own personality, to divide the wheat from the tares, the lies from the truth, and pull from it the hindsight, the wisdom. The tares are the lies, the falseness, the darkness, the suffering, the human identity. We're not meant to be humans for all eternity. We're not meant to be in that wanting and yearning and desire and struggle. We're meant to come and become still. The sign of our Father is movement and repose. To find our repose, to be still in want, and to still our desire. Movement is desire. Repose is inner peace. We're here to find inner peace and still our desire and become beings of love again. And find the way to save ourselves. That's why Jesus said that we shall be saved if we learn of his teachings, follow his commandments, follow his way to the truth, to resurrect our life in that image God made us in, so that we can awaken and save ourselves. Kind of like in a video game, if you get so far in the video game, you have all of these things that you've gathered, you've come so far in the video game. If you don't save your character and you die, the physical life, or you die in the video game, you lose all your stuff and you got to start over again. That the coming to know yourself is the saving of your character, so that when you awaken and your physical life is over and you awaken in the spiritual realm, you have an avatar, a personality, a character to live out your life for all eternity. With the hindsight, the wisdom, you gain your own grace. So you're no longer falling back down into that darkness and always living that narrow path of the way. The way is not a way that you follow and then you come to know yourself and you're done. The way is a way of grace, of wisdom, to know how to walk through life, to always live that way. So you're in that high state of consciousness of heaven, and you never fall into the darkness again of that suffering, that wanting, that yearning. And all the scriptures of the world talk about that. The Tao Te Ching, the Tao, talks about the way of the virtuous man, the eternal Tao, the eternal way that one can always walk, so that they're always in the Tao. Or Buddha's Eightfold Path way of the Four Noble Truths, to always end that, to be in that way of not being in the yearning, the struggle, the wanting. It's all about knowing thyself, the oldest ideology of humanity. And so in this episode, we just want to talk about the meaning of life. The meaning of life in the spirit realm when we were first born, and the meaning of life of this journey that we're supposed to walk through the shadow of the valley of death, come to know ourselves as beings of love and truth, and to come to know that love is the meaning of life. It's the only way. Love is the way, and it's the only truth that will set us free from our suffering. There are the path of darkness and the path of light. And if we're always walking the negative polarity and the positive polarity and never choosing a path, we will always have the darkness in our eyes. Our bodies will be filled with darkness. We'll always be in that suffering, in that wanting, in that yearning. We must choose the narrow path of the way. Fill our bodies full of light Make thine eye be single and our hearts empty of want, of yearning, of darkness, of pride. Humble our hearts, and always live in that narrow path of humility, of love, of kindness, of gentleness, and being brotherly and sisterly to each other, turning the other cheek and not turning to arrogance and pride, and not turning to fear and putting up a mask, being authentic with each other and loving each other with that kindness, having patience with each other, that we're all living in ignorance, trying to find the way to that truth, back to restoring that image that God made us in, which is the life, that Christ image, in that high state of consciousness and awareness as beings of love. Until then, I know that this journey is difficult, and you have my sympathies and my compassion for your suffering. And in each video, I'm trying to show the way, the truth, and the life, to restore Jesus' teachings in the Essene way of the way, the truth, and the life. Until then, I send you my love and my peace.